Good afternoon, everybody. This is James with 77 Financial Group. You're listening to 15 Minutes of Finance, where in the next 15 minutes, I bet I can get you excited about investing. Let's do it. All right. Happy Saturday, everybody. We are back at it again. We got some news we got to cover. Mom and dad are fighting about the credit card debt. We got to figure out what's going on with Elon and Mr. Don. What a ridiculous... It's just like two young parents fighting is really what, or even two siblings fighting. But we have some thoughts on that and why Elon is probably over-exaggerating, being a little hyperbolic. And then obviously Trump is being Trump, which it's like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable wall, and why that's frustrating and also not that big of a deal. But let's get into the news. We had some stuff this week that we should cover. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the U.S. economy added 139,000 jobs in May, topping economists' forecasts and helping alleviate concerns about a tariff-driven slowdown in the labor market. The S&P 500 gained 1% on Friday, closing above the 6,000-point level for the first time since February. The Dow was up 1.1%, while the Nasdaq jumped 1.2%. Shares of big data analytics software provider Palantir Technologies popped 6.5% higher, securing the top daily performance in the S&P 500. Positivity around its expanding government business helped lift Palantir to an all-time high on Tuesday, but before Friday's gains, the stock had been pulling back for a couple of sessions. Palantir and other artificial intelligence companies benefited from upbeat sentiment after earnings results for chipmaker Broadcom revealed strong AI demand. Moderna shares wrapped up a volatile week of trading with a gain of 5.1% on Friday. The biotech company announced at the end of the week that it had received Food and Drug Administration (FDA) approval for the use of its new COVID-19 vaccine by older and higher-risk patients. On Tuesday, Health and Human Service Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said Moderna had agreed to a placebo-controlled trial of the vaccine. United Airlines announced a partnership with Spotify technology that will allow airborne passengers to access playlists, audiobooks, and video podcasts from the streaming service on their seatback screens. Wow, that's kind of cool. United shares increased 4.8% on Friday, while rival carrier Delta Airlines shares were up 4.3%. Tesla shares advanced 3.7% on Friday as the feud between Tesla CEO Elon Musk and U.S. President Donald Trump showed signs of de-escalation heading into the weekend. The spat between the two contributed to a major drop in electric vehicles makers' stock in the prior session. Several analysts reaffirmed their bullishness on Tesla despite the high-profile conflict, but they noted that the tensions with Trump could complicate the regulatory path for the firm's self-driving technology or risk alienating people with certain political perspectives. We'll talk about that here too in a second. Lululemon issued lower than expected sales and profit guidance for current quarter and trimmed its full year profit forecast. The maker of yoga attire and other athletic apparel noted that the U.S. consumers are taking a cautious approach to spending and discussed plans to increase prices on some products as it aims to mitigate traffic impacts. Lululemon shares plunged 19.8%. That is so much. You can compare that to Tesla, which I think dropped like 14 or 15. Dropping the most of any constituent in the S&P 500. JP Morgan and UBS analysts cut their price targets for the Lululemon stock following the underwhelming outlook. Broadcom posted fiscal second quarter sales and adjusted profit results that were roughly in line with consensus forecasts. A major year-over-year uptick in artificial intelligence semiconductor revenue helped the chipmaker achieve record quarterly revenue of $15 billion. I almost said $115 billion. Goodness. I'm giving them a bump here, I guess. However, Broadcom shares slipped 5% on Friday, receding from a string of record highs notched before the earnings release. Mosaic, ticker MOS, a provider of fertilizers and other agricultural products, reduced its 2025 phosphate production guidance, citing operational issues in its U.S. facilities. Shares of Mosaic were down 4.4%. I mean, that's the news here. What do I think? First off, I want to talk about Broadcom and just the chip making world and why. I mean, every day when I hear or watch CNBC, I hear about how there's an AI bubble. There's an AI bubble. I don't get how there can be a bubble for something that continues to produce the thing that they're supposed to be a bubble on. So what would be a really good example? So 2008, 2007, there was a housing bubble. Okay, people were buying houses that they didn't have money to buy. Okay, it's not that they just kept building all of these houses. It was a little bit like that, but it wasn't like they were building all of these houses and the construction companies building these houses weren't getting paid. Okay, that's what Broadcom, Taiwan Semiconductor, SMCI, that's what these companies are that make these chips. They're the construction companies building the houses. So the chip manufacturers, that's the companies we just named, and then NVIDIA, that's like the use of these chips. And Palantir obviously uses these chips for a software component, but on the hardware side, NVIDIA uses these companies, these manufacturers, to make the chips. So to compare that to the housing bubble, that would be like all of these giant construction companies building all these houses, not being able to sell them to the giant outfitters. Lennar, I'm trying to remember all the giant companies that exist that effectively sell the houses. Lennar is one of the companies that builds the houses and then also tries to sell them. So that's maybe not the best example, but it is an example. It would be like Lennar getting the construction, all of the equipment, and then not being able to sell the houses, which isn't what happened. What happened was all of the houses were being bought with money that these people didn't have. That's what the bubble was. So NVIDIA, who we constantly see all of the cash they have on hand, all of the money they keep making, revenue keeps increasing, they're buying these chips. So the demand is there. There is no gap between the chip demand and then the people buying the chip's ability to buy the chip. Hopefully that makes sense. My construction example wasn't the best, but it was the first thing that popped in my head. The demand for AI is so incredibly it's so incredibly massive. I can't remember what the company is. Let me look it up. London fake AI company. This is honestly very funny. I haven't looked into this. This could be fake. No, this looks like it's real. How this Microsoft-backed billion-dollar London startup made 700 engineers sitting in India pose as AI tool. Okay, Builder.ai, that's the company. This is crazy. AI has such a big market, such a big influence on everything we're doing that companies are faking their AI models. They're faking it. This London-based company, and again, I haven't verified everything, but it's all over the place. So there's a good chance it's real. Builder.ai, once valued at $1.5 billion and backed by Microsoft and Qatar's sovereign wealth fund, has filed for bankruptcy after reports that its AI-powered app development platform was actually operated by Indian engineers, said to be around 700 of them, pretending to be artificial intelligence. There is such a high demand for AI that people are faking it. Tell me how that's a bubble. Okay, so whenever I hear that there's a bubble, it doesn't make sense to me. Bubbles, usually you don't notice there's a bubble until it pops. But, I mean, we've seen the movie Big Short. A lot of people did see it, right? Hey, nobody's paying these mortgages. What are these mortgage-backed securities that we have? But nobody's paying these mortgages. How could they be such high-rated debt instruments? There's ways to see it, okay? I'm not seeing, based on the data that we have, that there's a bubble. In fact, demand keeps increasing to the part where people make it up. They make it up. That is like the biggest evidence that this is doing really well. Okay, yeah. Let's now talk about mom and dad fighting, okay? We got Elon and we got Trump. Both of them, again, a movable wall meets an unstoppable force. Very annoying to hear them argue. What does it mean for Tesla? Okay, Tesla dropped 15%. Tesla drops all the time, and then we'll have a 6-week run of 90% gains. Okay, so I'm not worried about Tesla. I am a little concerned that he does kind of need the government's backing to really hit the self-driving vehicle market. He really does, which is supposed to happen. It's either the middle of June or the middle of July, he's supposed to have some big event where he's talking about the robo-taxis. But apparently he's had a car running around Austin with no driver in it with near flawless experiences for like 6 to 8 weeks here. So I'm very, very bullish on Tesla. I just don't see how it isn't an extremely valuable company, like multiple of where it's at now. I think it's over $1 trillion, but I could see this being the first $10 trillion company. Now, if he keeps being weird and isolating people and telling on Twitter, now X, that the president was in the Epstein files, that's going to be really a bad look for pretty much anybody who he would like to buy his car. Michael Jordan has a really, really great quote: "Republicans buy sneakers too." And this was back in the day whenever people were upset that, Jordan wouldn't take a political stance or advocate socially for things. And he's like, hey, look, I got shoes to sell. Okay, I'm a businessman before anything else. So a lot of respect for that, even though I'm a LeBron guy. The arguing between Trump and Elon, there's two big considerations for me. One, Elon I don't really know why he's mad, but he says he's mad because of the big, beautiful bill, right? And we'll let Brandon dive deep into any of the actual implications of taxes. I think the Senate's going to try to have it done before the 4th of July. And so, Brandon and I will have an episode out. But right now, we don't really know what's officially going to be done, so we're not trying to speculate. But Elon is mad because it's going to increase the debt ceiling. I think it's going to increase the deficit. I think by like $2.4 trillion, it's going to increase the debt ceiling, which is noticeable. I got 3 minutes. I do quickly want to mention why I personally, and Warren Buffett, and this is many, many years ago that he said this, but I never forgot about this, why the debt ceiling to me isn't really that big of a deal. Okay, what you'll hear often, and probably in the news recently, because people keep talking about it, the country is just like a person. Okay, the USA, his name is Ulysses USA. Okay, I don't know why I picked Ulysses, it just sounded good. So Ulysses USA makes $26 trillion a year. That's the revenue. Okay, well, guess what? He has a mortgage that's $36 trillion. Okay, that's pretty bad, right? That's a whole year's worth more than what he owes. That sounds terrible. But if we dumb that all the way back down to how we as humans interact with our debt, and we compare the country's overall debt to a mortgage, we're nowhere near what an actual person does on their mortgage, right? You can have a mortgage that's 25 times your income. You get usually it's not that high, but you can. You make $150,000. Getting $1 million house, a $1.5 million house, isn't that unrealistic? That would be a 10 times, 15 times X of your actual income for that year. Well, 26 million is Ulysses' income, and his debt is 36 million. That's not even 1.5 times. Okay, so that kind of comparison, I think, is it. What do I say? It brings me down to earth that it's really not that bad. Now, and Warren Buffett taught me that in 2018 or 2017. I can't remember when he said that to use that comparison. But you'll hear people in the news talking about how this is just like a normal person and all of their debt. And I'm like, but that's not realistic, because here we are using that exact example with a mortgage, and it's not even that bad comparatively. Now, I will say the fiscal spending and the fiscal debt does concern me. And the fiscal debt is essentially just our revenue versus our spending. So how much money are we bringing in, and then how much are we increasing the spending? And if we keep increasing that spending, that is where it could get really out of hand. Inflation could get crazy. And that's where we're going to have like 1980s level prices on stuff. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants to live through that. So that's my comparison for Elon being really angry about the debt. I think it's unfounded. I am a little angry that Trump is increasing the spending. I thought the whole point here was we were going to lower the spending. So we'll see. Maybe it all balances out with the tax cuts he's supposed to be bringing people, but who knows? All right, guys, as always, invest early, invest often. We'll see you next week.